Hello, everybody. My name is Gary Harvey. I'm the Managing Director of Rincon Resources. We're a West Australian-focused gold and copper explorer, and we listed December 2020. We raised $6 million at 20 cents, and we have $3 million remaining in the tin for further exploration.
Gary, thanks very much. Thanks for the introduction. Good to see you.
Yes, yep, good to see you too, Melon.
So Rincon Resources, your main project is up. It's called Hastings, is that right? Up in between Telfer and Harvey?
Yes. Sorry, I should go back one step. We actually have three projects in WA. We have the South Telfer project, we have the Kiwirrkurra project, and the Laverton Gold project. South Telfer is our flagship project, and within that project, we have the Hastings prospect, where we've recently completed 5,000 metres of drilling, and we're about to commence our second phase of 5,000 metres of drilling at the Hastings prospect.
Okay, great. And just to put viewers or listeners in the picture and kind of in the context, could you just remind me and everyone what the Telfer mine, and also where Harvey is west? Why are you in this area, and what are those two major deposits? What are their kind of key features in terms of size and grade?
Yeah, look, Paterson Province, as you know, is a large province. It's well known for sedimentary hosted copper gold deposits, very large systems. South Telfer, the Telfer gold mine is 12 kilometres from Hastings as the crow flies. That's a 32 million ounce gold deposit, and over 1 million tonnes of copper has been produced or will be produced from that gold mine. Telfer is the classic anticlinal fold hinge type gold copper deposits. So you get gold mineralisation related to quartz veining and sulphides in quartz reefs inside these anticlinal bodies zones, and you also get related to that stockwork and breccia style mineralisation. So these are subvertical structures that come up through your sedimentary sequence and create very high grade steeply dipping lodes. So Telfer has a combination of both the reef and stockwork and breccia style mineralisation. Harvey, being a fairly new deposit, it's about 45 to 50 k's away from where we are. It's more of a pure sulphide style and brecciation. Now, it's not related to an intrusive dome, so to speak. It's more of an intrusive plug. So it's a great big cigar-like feature that's poked its nose up through the sediments, and you've got mineralisation around the edges of that, as opposed to anticlinal features over the top of that. So at Hastings, the style of mineralisation that we're targeting, and certainly what we've seen from our existing drilling, is analogous to Telfer, in that we've got reef-style mineralisation and we've got breccia and stockwork-style mineralisation.
Okay, nice. Thank you for the refresher. And is Telfer in sulphide? Because looking at some of your sections on the work that you've done in your South Telfer project, there's quite a pronounced base of oxidation, and the mineralisation, that the bulk of the mineralisation looks to be in the oxide zone, in the kind of the weathered portion of the profile.
Yeah, look, that's correct. So at the moment, Hastings presents itself as an oxide zone of mineralisation. Indeed, it manifests at the surface as a gossan. Now, that gossan is related to both reef and stockwork mineralisation originally. So at the moment, it's really just a wad of iron oxides with copper floating around and bits of quartz. And certainly there's gold. Now, that oxide mineralisation that we've defined or drilled to date, so it starts from surface. We've drilled that down to about 120 metres below surface. It's gone up to 50 metres wide in the thickest part, and certainly in the narrowest parts, it's about 5 metres wide, where it starts to get more vertical, and it's open in all directions. So this is the test now for phase 2, is to start extending on what we've defined already.
And are you going to, well, there was another aspect of the drilling that I kind of, I noticed, is that quite often, in a sense, you've got an envelope around the dip of your drilling. So your drilling it's almost as if it's going down structure, and you've got a couple of cross holes. What's driving the orientation of your drilling? I mean, is it structural mapping, or was it just the first phase? It was just a look-see.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of both. So when we walked into this, we knew Newcrest had obviously done some drilling here back in the mid-90s. They obviously identified a zone of mineralisation across about 300 metres of strike. And our first initial aim was to follow up on Newcrest drilling. We had to verify that data was useful to be able to use that in a resource estimation. Now, during the process of planning that program, we obviously did some mapping at the same time, and realised that indeed the Hastings Gossan was the apex of a fold hinge. So we had one side of the fold hinge with limbs dipping to the west, and the other side with limbs dipping to the east. So structurally, yes, we drilled it from the west back towards the east. Now that's drilling into the western limb, and hopefully you drill all the way through the sequence and you come out through the eastern limb. Most of the mineralisation that we're seeing at the moment seems to be related to the eastern limb. So it has made it difficult with this first phase, having pushed our holes further to the west. We didn't quite reach all the way through the eastern limb, but we've drilled it enough to be able to know that mineralisation follows that eastern limb down at depth. And we've also seemed to be intersecting some vertical structures cutting through that sequence as well.
Does that mean your second phase of drilling is going to come in from the east to the west to kind of better test that eastern limb? Yeah,
look, that's ideal. We'd love to be able to do that. Unfortunately, because Hastings outcrops at the surface, it also means that the topography is actually quite undulating at surface. So it just happens that the eastern side where you prefer to drill is actually quite difficult because of the nature of the topography. It's quite steep and undulating, and given the significance of some of the outcrops in the area, at this stage we're not willing to bulldoze half a mountain down to drill a hole. So we think we can still achieve the same result by drilling from the west, where it's slightly flatter. It just means we've got to drill a bit deeper.
Okay, understood. And are you going to target the oxides? Are you going to push down below 120 meters? Are you going to, is your focus to extend along strike, or are you going to do some deeper holes? And are you going to, I noticed that in one of your slides, there's an intrusion and some deep holes, and, it's possible kind of a Hail Mary, maybe we could hit a Havarion West or kind of a...
Yeah, look, phase 2 is a combination of both. So we will start to look at some extensional strikes, so 100 to 200 metres either side of both the Hastings main and the Hastings southeast zones. But, really we want to start testing that depth potential. So that deep target that you're referring to, which we think is related to this intrusive dolerite sill, that certainly we want to test that. So yeah, at the same time, extension, but the depth is the real potential that we want to test in this program. So that'll be the main focus, and we'll chip away with the strike extensions through a series of programs going from here on.
And how deep is a deep hole? What are you targeting?
Look, we're quite fortunate because our mineralisation start from surface. This dolerite sill is about 300 metres below current level of drilling. So our holes, we only have to drill probably up to about 500 metres maximum. If you compare that to something like Havarion, you've got to drill 400 metres just to get to the top of the system. And then you've got to drill another 400 metres to go through it. So that's the difference. So our drilling is at this stage shallower, which means it's we can effectively test this system
cost effectively. And are you doing air core as well in the region? So you're doing, so is it diamond for the deep, RC for the less deep, and air core for the scout?
Yeah, so look, RC and diamond is the focus for Hasties. Because this is essentially a mineralisation presenting itself at surface, there's less transported weathering material. Now we still say it's oxidised, which it is, but it's still quite hard. So that's definitely an RC and diamond drilling to test that, to get the depth. The air core drilling we've actually assigned to test our newly defined geophysical targets, our V10 targets. They're on some of our tenements further to the southeast. We do know from mapping that there's a certain level of transport of material. So air core is the best way to test those targets on a maiden testing of those targets. And what that'll do is basically we'll just punch through the sand, the overlying sand, and we'll test the top of the bedrock and really identify if there's any supergene anomalism on that surface, that front. And then if there is, we'll follow those targets up with RC at a later date. And that's still within the broader South Telfer project, but just in the licenses to the southeast. That's right. So there's 3 areas of licenses. You've got the Hasties area, which is the smallest sort of part of our tenement package. Then you've got a central tenement area. We've got some targets there we're going to be testing early next year. And then there's the western target area, which is the largest part of our project, which is directly along strike from the Telfer mine, and certainly that highly prospective Telfer geology. And we'll get to that again probably towards the second quarter of next year. And you also mentioned that you're going to be doing some ultra fine fraction soil geochemistry. Can you explain that to me? Yeah, look, it's a traditional technique. So this is taking soil samples from the surface, from the sands. Now, recent studies by the CSIRO, Government Geological Agency. So they've identified that by taking samples from the low-lying material in between the sand dunes, if you sieve that to a very, very, very fine fraction, that you get some very residual geochemical responses that could actually tell you a bit about what's sitting below those sand dunes at depth. So it's proven to be successful. Virion or Greatland have used it, and Telfer Resources have used it. They've identified suites of targets from those. So we think that's something that we could use at Western, given the very early stage of the work down there. Hopefully we identify some responses, and if we can overlay that information on top of our geophysical targets, then that gives us two layers of information to prioritise some of those targets for our first phases of air core drilling. Great. Thank you. I'm not used to working in those desert environments where the ultrafine soil geochemistry might be productive. Just going back to Hasties and the Gossan and the weathering profile and the copper. Is it too early to have done petrography? Have you done any kind of species analysis of where the copper is sitting and where the gold is sitting? And are you at all worried about that, or is it just too early days? You're just trying to map out where the metal is at the moment. I would say I'm not worried about it. It's certainly something we aim to do. At the moment, the drilling, we haven't essentially got the right material to start doing that type of work. This is why we're doing diamond drilling. So diamond drilling will allow us to get, fresh rock and usable material that's a lot better to use for those type of studies. We do have the benefit of, existing research from, Telfer and, particularly Telfer. So we've got a pretty good understanding. We have a consultant that used to work for Newcrest here, so he has a lot of insight that is guiding us as well. But certainly we'll start to do that. we'll start to do those studies as we start to drill deeper and get good, fresh rock from diamond core.
Yeah, good. Let's go on to the other projects. Could you tell me a bit about what you're working on Kiwirrkurra and Laverton, please?
Yeah, look, Kiwirrkurra is another key project for us, well, in my view. It's an IOCG style copper and orogenic gold project. So mineralisation. The main target at the moment at Kiwirrkurra is our Pikali prospect. This is an IOCG style target, straight up. It was drilled in the mid 2000s by a company called Ashburton Minerals, and they drilled some excellent results. Very wide widths of low to medium grade copper, which is really good because it obviously tells you there's a lot of copper in the system. And we're actually quite fortunate because my current co-director, Zephron Reeves, he was actually the geologist that drilled those holes at Pikali back in the mid 2000s. So again, we've got a good level of insight, and on the back of his knowledge and certainly some of the reviews or the data review that we've completed, we've developed some really good targets to drill test. Two of those targets are deemed very high priority, and we plan to drill those set from second quarter of next year using RC and diamond drilling. Those particular targets actually lie adjacent to that historical drilling. So look, we think that potentially that could be the source of the existing copper mineralisation. And, we're actually quite fortunate to have received an EIS co-funding grant from the government of WA to drill a couple of diamond holes to test those targets. So, that's a real shot in the arm for us, having the government back you and assist you by refunding some of your drilling costs.
So, yeah, the grant from the government, $75,000. What's that about? Because it's not usual, is it, for governments to fund exploration drilling?
Yeah, that's right. So, look, it's a $150,000 co-funding grant for Kiwirrkurra, and we've also got $75,000 co-funding grant for South Telfer for this phase 2 now. So $220,000. So, several years ago, in fact, probably about 12 years ago now, the government set up a scheme to, try and accelerate and encourage explorers to start testing new areas, particularly undercover. They obviously felt there was a need to start testing and finding deposits at depth because a lot of the shallower deposits have been mined or found. So this was really an incentive to push people out there into the nether regions, I guess, to start looking under deep cover. And so every year, twice a year, they run a program, a series of applications where you can present or put forward a proposal to test some valid targets. And they assess those and they rank those applications, and subject to the merits of those applications, they'll decide whether they will assist you or not. So it's great for the company, they get a grant, but it's also a benefit to the state of WA because they, out of that grant, they get the drill core or whatever material that you whether it's RC or diamond or whatever. But in our case, it's diamond drilling. So we're obligated to give half of our diamond core to the government. They'll do a series of their own analysis, interpretation on that, and that data comes back to us. So that helps us. Look, and it's more about us being allowed to do or encouraging us to do our work, but it's also assisting the government for, the Geological Survey to obviously learn more and gain more information about these new areas, which they don't already have either.
Great. Well, what a system. That's fantastic. Can you tell me, underneath when you're doing the air core in South Telfer, there's obviously transported cover there. Kind of what depth are you going to there, and also on Kiwirrkurra, what's the kind of the depth of the cover there? So in both areas, just so I got in my head how deep undercover you're looking in those two areas.
Yeah, look, so South Telfer, as I said, Hasties, there's practically no cover, so it presents itself at the surface. The central tenement area, there's probably, I think about 20 or 30 metres of cover. It gets a little bit deeper when we get to Western. We know that from previous historical drilling that the cover goes down to about 100 metres. So in the scheme of it, it's still shallow. Kiwirrkurra, Picali prospect is actually outcropping. So it's, this is rocks that have been pushed up at the surface. So Picali itself is there's basically no cover, which is why we go straight in with RC and diamond. Obviously, to test additional targets in Kiwirrkurra at a later stage. With air core, we will have to go through cover, but at the moment, I couldn't tell you how deep that is. We just don't know the answer to that one yet.
But you got the grant for going undercover. I mean, and yet it sticks out of the ground.
Yeah, no. So in that sense, because it's a diamond hole, right? So we start at the surface, but the target's actually quite deep. So the drill targets for Kiwirrkurra are about 400 metres below surface. So we're drilling probably 2 500-metre holes to test those targets. So in that sense, the grant's not just about drilling under transported cover. It's drilling targets at depth. That's probably a better definition. Is deep targets more than testing for things just under cover.
Thank you. I got it clear in my head now. I saw Ed Mason on the board and Jeff McNamara and the NED you mentioned, who's the MD of El Tesoro in Chile.
Yeah, Tesoro, Zephron Reeves. Yeah,
Zephron. So to me, that all links back to Medea in London. Is that part of the foundation of the company? Do you know Medea Fund?
No, I don't know. Sorry.
Okay, and you've got one major shareholder of 17%. What was the name of it? Gunson PLC.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you? What's that name represent?
I think the name is actually the name of a racing horse, to be honest. But Gunson is a group of Australian investors, and they're obviously a public company in the UK. They invest in natural resources and alcohol, of all things. So they have a portfolio of assets, and they came in through one of our JLMs, Ironside Capital. We brought them in at float. Our other JLM is Pac Partners. But yeah, no, Gunson, they're good. They're quite supportive.
Okay, great. So I guess just to kind of wrap up, you've got $3 million in cash. It looks as if you're kind of burning about $1 million a quarter. So you've probably got runway for 6 months. Just riffing off the top of my head, which means that you've got to come up with some directors' holds in the next 6 months. What represents success? You know, what can we look for in the next 6 months, which we go, he did what he was trying to do, and they've achieved it, and now they can raise more money on the back of that. You know, what does success look like? Well,
look, to be honest, hopefully success is great results at depth by Hasties. You know, we believe in the target. We think we've got good potential there. So that would be the first cab off the rank is getting some good results at depth, and certainly realising the potential for scale at Hasties. So, you know, even if we don't hit a deep target, we get enough information to tell us that the system's alive, that we need to keep doing some more drilling, and the results will come, because if the system's there, you can prove that it's mineralised and it has that type of scale. You know, at the moment, the system is over 1 kilometre, but if we can say, right, we know it's at 1 kilometre now, but these results are telling us that the system could stretch across 2 kilometres, and we've got enough good results now at depth to tell us that there's something alive, there's something down there that we should still keep drilling to test.
Well,
Secondly,
sorry. And when you say kind of, let's say you get that intercept which says we haven't hit the mother lode, but there's something alive here. Is it 50 meters at? 50, oh god, sudden echo. Is it 50 meters at 0.1 grams gold? Is it 50 meters at 100 meters at 0.2? You know, when you think about it, what will tell you?
Oh, look, I think in this case, it's not so much about the result, it's about the geology. So absent of the result, if you know you've drilled into a structure that you think is the salt, you're going to see the alteration, right? So the quartz veining, you're going to probably see some sulfides. You know, you're going to see stockwork veining, some brecciation. Now, it may not necessarily be high grade, but they're certainly going to tell you that you're in the ballpark and you're not that far away. So that, you know, absent of results, if you hit the right structures, you know, you certainly got something to vector off, and that'll help you then drill your next hole, which hopefully gets you into the goods. But first and foremost, we'd like to hit the good result straight away. But like I said, if there's enough information there, which is the right geology, the right structures, you're seeing the right structures, the right alteration, then you know you're in the system. And then it's just a matter of, you know, a few more extra holes and hopefully you've got it there. And this is what the exploration game's all about. You know, this is why Virion is where it is, because it was followed up on something that gave them the indication that there was something down there. And it was only when they went in and drilled extra holes that they pinged it. So a similar thing will most likely happen at Hastings. Now, secondly, success is achieving what we set out to do in terms of our program commencement at Kiwirrkurra. So we've just completed our heritage agreement with the Matu native title holders. So now that facilitates us to be able to get access out there and start that drill program. So if we can get out there and start that beginning of second quarter of next year, then that's a real win, because you know, that puts us ahead of schedule in terms of getting out to Kiwirrkurra. Like I said, Kiwirrkurra is you know, obviously has some fairly significant potential that needs testing.
Gary, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and it'll probably be appropriate to catch up with you again in Q2 to hear how you've got on with all of the work.
Absolutely. Yep. I'll put that on my list of things to do.
Good. Thanks a lot.